Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to take an in-depth look at the Persona series. For those of you who don't know, this series was actually a spin-off of the mainline Shin Megami Tensei series. Of course, we're getting Shin Megami Tensei 5 coming out for the Switch next year, but ever since Persona 5 and maybe even Persona 4 came out, this has kind of overtaken the main series as the most popular franchise, and there's been several spin-offs of this spin-off since Persona 3. With as popular as Persona 4 and Persona 5 has been, I wanted to make a collecting guide for people, so if you want to own the entire mainline Persona series physically, all 6 games, yes you heard me, there's 6 mainline Persona games, I'll get into that. But if you do want to own it, there's different options. There's definitely games that are pricier than others. I wanted to go over the complete mainline series with you guys because I thought it would be pretty fun to do. Now, in terms of the first Persona game, which is Persona Revelations on the PS1, you'll notice that I don't have it here. That's because I actually got this enhanced port on the PSP, and this has a lot of quality of life improvements that make it way easier to play than that PS1 version. It's also far less expensive than that PS1 version. However, this is creeping up to around $100, so it's still going to be pretty expensive. If you want to play your Persona 1 on the big screen, you can hook up your PSP to a TV with a pretty cheap cable. However, your other option is to buy a PS1 Classic, because a PS1 Classic is probably even cheaper than this game by itself, and you can get the original PS1 version of Persona Revelations on that. However, I would recommend this version is probably the best version in terms of playing it. So if you're just doing it for the collectability, obviously that PS1 version is kind of a holy grail game. But if you're doing it just to play it and you want it physically, the PS1 version would definitely be the one I recommend the most. Now, you may have noticed I have Persona 2 on the PSP, but also on the PS1. And if I was okay with just having Persona 1 on PSP, why did I feel the need to get the PS1 version and also the PSP version? And that's where that comment I made earlier that there's 6 games in the Persona franchise comes into play, because these are completely different games. They should have called this Persona 2 Part 1 and this Persona 2 Part 2. Now this one is Persona 2 Innocent Sin on the PSP, and on the PlayStation 1 we have Persona 2 Eternal Punishment. Now Eternal Punishment is actually Part 2, and again, completely different stories, but they're related to each other. Think of it how every Final Fantasy game is its own game, just like the Persona series, but sometimes you get a direct sequel, like with Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy X-2. This is kind of the same thing here. In the West, we never got Persona 2 Part 1. They kind of just threw this game at us to see if it would stick and never bothered giving us the Part 1 because, again, it's its own story. You don't really need to have Part 1, but you kind of do if you want the full story, if you want to be able to play through the entire mainline series. I mean, they're completely separate games, so obviously if you're trying to play all the games, you want to play both. Now, here's the complicated thing about this, is that, like I said, Innocent Sin, which we only got on the PSP, is the first one of Persona 2, and then the PlayStation version, Eternal Punishment, is the second one. So that means if you're trying to play through this series sequentially, like chronologically in order, you're going to be playing this wonderful quality of life enhanced version of Persona 1. Then you're going to go to Part 1 of Persona 2 and get the same exact experience. And then for your third game in the series, you're going to have to play a very archaic, non-user friendly game. And it's very hard to go from playing these kind of remasters to this very basic PS1 experience. It's not very fun. And the other thing I should say is that the first 2 Persona games, which is technically 3 games, they don't have the same feel of Persona 5. Now, they still have personas and that battle system, but like I said, they're first-person dungeon crawlers, so you don't even get to see your character, and there's like no emphasis on that high school sim that the later Personas are so popular for. So if you like that style of Persona 5, that style of Persona games is basically, they started doing that with Persona 3. So you really only need Persona 3, 4, and 5 if it's that Persona 5 experience that you're going for. The Persona 1 and 2 and the other Persona 2, they're very expensive. Like, this game is over $250 right now. It's just crazy, and if you want it physically, that's your only option. Even these ones are creeping up to $100, so they're very highly collectible. And you're gonna have to hunt really hard to try to find a good deal on them, especially right now with the quarantine, everything going on in 2020. Now, in terms of Persona 3, that game actually came out on the PlayStation 2 and later was ported to the PSP. But before it was ported to the PSP, basically an entire DLC was added, which back with the PS2 you couldn't download DLC, so they re-released the game with basically a whole second game built in called The Answer. And the way to get that version of Persona 3 is to get it on the PlayStation 2 Persona 3 FES or Persona 3 FES, and that has the full version of Persona 3 plus The Answer built in and included. Now, I would say this is actually the best way to play Persona 3, and it's definitely the cheapest because for some reason, and this just happened in the last couple months, this game, Persona 3 Portable, has shot up to over $150, which is insane because this was always a very cheap game, like $20 to $30. It was nothing like these two, which were always more $50 to $60. So I don't know why Persona 3 is now more expensive than 1 and 2, but it's kind of how it worked out. But this game, Persona 3 Portable, loses all the cutscenes and all the beautiful animations that we love in Persona. So it really makes this a much better version in my opinion. Now, the appeal of Persona 3 Portable is you can actually select the attacks of your full team and party members, and in Persona 3 on the PS2 versions, you can only choose the attacks of your protagonist. So a lot of people want to get Persona 3 Portable when they hear that. However, the game was designed with just choosing the attacks of your protagonist. And even though it's super annoying and your party can do some really dumb stuff, you're adding so many hours of filler gameplay by selecting all the attacks of your full party. It's gonna make the game almost twice as long. So I still think the PS2 is the way to go. I got this basically because it was really, really cheap at the time. I think I got this for less than $20, you know, less than a few years ago. And that's the reason I own it. If I had to pick a version to play, for me, it would be the PS2 version. Now, next up on the list, we have Persona 4. Now, this is Persona 4 Golden, which is basically another enhanced version that was made for the PS Vita. And this has beautiful graphics as opposed to the original Persona 4 that was released on the PS2. Now, I don't have that one, but that one would probably be the cheapest one to get. The Persona 4 Golden for the Vita has started to go up in price a little bit, but it's not crazy. However, I would say that if you don't own a Vita already, it might not be worth it to get a Vita just for this game. It used to be, but this got ported over to the PC. So if you don't care about getting it physically, I mean, you can get it for $20 on the PC. There you go. If you care about getting it physically, you know, the PS2 would be the cheapest way, and then the PlayStation Vita would be the best way. However, with that PC port, I think it's very possible we see this on the PS4 or PS5 or Nintendo Switch at some point in the next couple years. So again, if you already have a PlayStation Vita, I will 100% guarantee it's like 99% chance you already have this game, because this was the #1 reason to own a Vita for a really long time. This was the system highlight. The reason being is, as good as Persona 5 is, Persona 4 Golden is pretty much just as great. And what's really cool is, imagine all that Persona 5 gameplay, if that's the only one you've played, everything about that, the high school sim, everything, but the story might even be cooler in this game, because instead of like some godlike being trying to take over the universe and take over everyone's heart like in Persona 5, in this game you're actually investigating a serial killer, and that's like so cool to me. There's not enough games. Like, one of my favorite TV shows is Dexter, and I'm fascinated by serial killers. I think a lot of us are actually, and that's what makes this game really, really cool to me. Now, the Persona 4 Golden, the enhanced version, has a completely new character, not in the PS2 version. It has new dungeons, it has new story. This is definitely the definitive way to play the game. And like I said, you'll notice here that there's a lot of different platforms if you want to collect the whole Persona series. It's always on PlayStation, there are always Sony platforms, but there's PSP, PS1, PS2, PS Vita. Persona 5 is actually on the PS3. There's some spin-offs on the PS3. Now, Nintendo does get the Shin Megami Tensei Mainline series, and they also get Persona Q on the 3DS, which is a spin-off of Persona. But for mainline Persona games, you're going to be limited to Sony platforms. If you have all of those systems, handhelds, consoles, definitely get, the definitive version that I recommend. But if you don't feel bad just picking them up on the PS2 or whatever is available to you. So lastly, for mainline games, we have the 6th mainline Persona game, which is Persona 5. And I actually, for the Persona 5 Royal, I got the full collector's edition. And I'll show you the contents of that collector's edition while I talk about Persona 5. Now, this is obviously going to be the easiest game to get because it's the newest one. You can still buy it in stores for $60. Now, I have the standard copy of Persona 5, which I got about a month after it came out. And this was my first Persona game. I actually got it because the girl I was dating at the time was watching someone stream it, and I thought it looked awesome. So I went, picked up this game, fell in love with it, and it got me collecting all these other games in the series, and luckily I was able to acquire them before prices went crazy, because even before COVID, prices started to go crazy on these. But I really love Persona 5. That was my entry to the series. However, if you don't have it yet, I highly recommend getting Persona 5 Royal, because similar to what Persona 4 Golden is to the Persona 4 that came out on the PS2, that's what Persona 5 Royal is. Again, it adds a new character. It adds new story content, and it adds a lot more new things to the game that actually do improve the overall story and experience. Now, if it didn't improve the story, I might tend to lean towards the standard version, but it actually does. So Persona 5 Royal Edition is definitely the one I recommend. I did want to take a look at a couple of spin-offs. I just want to let you guys know that I have some of the spin-offs, but I also don't have some. Like Persona 4 Arena was an actual fighting game for Persona on the PS3. I don't have that. There might be others that I don't have. I just have all the mainline games. Keep in mind, Persona 5 is also available on the PS3, so even if you don't have a PS4 yet, Persona 5 was actually supposed to just be a PS3 game, but it ended up taking so long to come out that it came out on PS3 and PS4 simultaneously. Persona 5 Royal, however, is only a PS4 game. Now, like I said, Persona 3 is when Persona started to come into the gameplay that we know now with Persona 5. So ever since Persona 3, that's when the spin-offs have really been taking off. And all three games, Persona 3, 4, and 5, have gotten their own rhythm game spin-off. And I love rhythm games, like Dance Dance Revolution, except you push the buttons on the controller instead of dancing on the mat. And what I especially like about these Persona rhythm game spin-offs is that instead of just getting the amazing soundtrack that you get from the Persona games, you also get more story content. These games actually have stories that add to the lore and the universe of the original Persona games. So Persona 4, the only way to get it physically is on the PlayStation Vita. You can get it on the PS4, just not physically on a disc. So you will have to get the Vita version if you want Persona 4 Dancing All Night. On the PlayStation 4, you can get Persona 3 Dancing in Moonlight and Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight, both physically. Now, I got this nifty double pack that comes with an art book, and what's nice about this pack is that it also came with a digital code to get Persona 4 Dancing All Night on the PS4 as well. So it's pretty much all three games. However, it only comes with discs for Persona 3 Dancing and Persona 5 Dancing. The other two Persona spin-off games that I have are Persona Q and Persona Q2. Now, these play a lot like the Etrian Odyssey series, and they're actually made by those developers, so think about it as a hybrid between Etrian Odyssey and Persona. Now, the original Persona Q takes that Etrian Odyssey style gameplay, the first-person dungeon crawling, and gives you the cast of characters from Personas 3 and 4 mixed together, which was pretty cool. And it's interesting because that first-person dungeon crawler style is similar to what the first 2 Persona games were, or I guess first 3 Persona games. Persona Q2, which was a very late release on the 3DS, will definitely end up being one of the last games to come out for the console, takes all the characters from Persona 3 and 4, but also Persona 5, and puts them in a story. So if you like Persona 5, you actually can get those characters in this game, so I think that is pretty cool. And these are the only Persona games to come out on a non-Sony console in the West, to come out on a Nintendo console. Anyway guys, that pretty much wraps up my collection video. Now, if there was anything I did in this video that you really liked, let me know in the comments and I'll make sure to always do that with these collection videos. Likewise, if I did something in this video that you found really annoying or just boring or whatever, let me know about that so I make sure not to do that. I really want to take some feedback and make these videos awesome for you guys to watch. Plus, if you have a vote for what the next series I should do a collecting guide on, please let me know. Also, if there was anything that I should have said in here, let me know that too, because I didn't want to make the video too long. I wanted to make it fun so you could watch it start to end, but if there's something really important that you think I should add to these videos, let me know. In terms of the next game series that I'm going to do, there are a couple that I'm debating. At some point, I definitely want to do a Final Fantasy series, but I guess I would have to do a separate one for the spin-offs and the mainline, because I just have so many of those games. Absolutely Pokemon. I want to do Suikoden or Yakuza are the 2 that I'm thinking of doing next. So Suikoden, I have the 5 mainline games, plus how many spin-off games? 2, I believe. And then Yakuza, I have 1 through 6 plus 0. I also have Judgment. So let me know, guys. Give me your judgment of what you'd like to see on this channel next. I hope you found this entertaining. Drop a like, consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye-bye.